All right, good afternoon, guys. So we finally broke our streak after 17 green trading days in a row. Haven't lost, haven't had a red day, at least on options, in more than 3 weeks, and only one red day on futures in the last 3 weeks. In the entirety of the last 3 weeks, tails red on both. It was a horrendous day of price action for my strategy, and we're going to review it. You guys know me. Perfect bottoms, perfect tops, major pivots that barely miss. I'm very bearish or bullish for those to end up sweeping or breaking. And that's kind of where my analysis started at today. So looking at this price action, very bearish overnight. You can see we're dumping into the market open. ES perfectly sweeps a major pivot, which would be kind of bullish, and not only is NQ in demand, which is bullish, NQ barely missed this major pivot from Friday. Barely missed it by like half a point, couple of ticks. So going into market open, pretty much my only sentiment is bearish. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, this is a gorgeous trend line right here. Absolutely gorgeous trend line, almost like perfect pivots. The more perfect they are, the more I'd be bullish for them to break to the upside. And this is one that can produce a solid run. Now, we are nowhere near it, but if we were to get up to here, I'd be fairly bullish for it. But otherwise, I am pretty bearish for this pivot. And the market opens. ES is a lot weaker than NQ. I took a pretty small trade, pretty much right at market open. Going for this pivot was extremely likely to break pretty much right at market open. As you can see, the risk to reward is terrible. So I can't be in heavy at all. And unfortunately, I stop out on not this candle, but the start of the next candle when the selling wick invalidated. So first loss there on options, I think it was like minus 20 or 30%, but it was lighter size. But now I'm starting to lean bullish on NQ. Now this pivot is still very valid. So if we get within 50 points of this pivot, very important that you guys are bearish for it and mark it out on your charts. But now NQ's invalidated majority of the drop. This trend line is absolutely gorgeous, but when we barely miss a pivot like that, it's pretty hard for me to change biases, right? But if we can get up here and break into the supply, I'll be bearish for this entire supply to break. Sorry, bullish for this entire supply to break. And when going back in time so I can see the exact moment I entered. I was thinking we might come back down to the pivot. We did not. And we had this candle. Now, I ended up filling calls, not on this candle, because I didn't fill. It left me in the dust. I filled QQQ calls on this red candle here. Now, at the end of this red candle, we finally pulled back a little bit. NQ is strong. ES had a bullish liquidity sweep and validated majority of the move. But I'm still leaning pretty bearish for that pivot. But as far as the chart goes, it's definitely leaning more bullish. But we do have heavy supply, and ES is so weak. ES doesn't really want to go up. So my main PT supply, and I'm going to sell most of supply. But if we break into supply with momentum, so if we get to roughly up here, I'm going to re-add to my calls and go for the supply break. So that is my grand plan. When we get there and I take profits pretty much right when we are there for 21% and leave a little bit left. And by the way, the options contracts today were absolutely disgustingly horrendous. Like, there's pretty much no money to be made. Even though I was green here and it was a bull pennant, I was pretty much break even on these contracts. So I moved up my stop a ton. And when it finally came back down, didn't get to my PT. I'm looking to add more calls here because I only pretty much have a runner position left. I stop out pretty much on that last candle, actually. So that was a small win. So right now I'm still a little red on the day. A little red on the day. But we start dumping. And we dump into this demand. Now, I still have a huge bias for this pivot. A massive bias for this pivot. I'm light red on the day at the moment. It's pretty much a perfect bottom. Very bearish for this pivot to break, but not only are we going against this liquidity sweep on ES, supply and demand has been absolutely magical. If you do not have that indicator, you're missing out. And I was tempted to enter on this candle. I didn't end up entering on this candle because I wanted to see if it would bounce out of demand. Started to, but I filled on this candle early into this candle, right when that buying wick invalidated, going for my pivot. Filled the 733 puts at 82 cents. I was up 30% on the trade. It barely missed. And the chop was so bad. When this candle happened, I was already down like 20%. So I had to move my stop way up. And I stopped out here. And I stopped out at 57 cents. So 82 minus 57, like 20%. So I stopped out for minus 20% there. And yeah, that's unfortunate. Now I'm still leaning bearish for the pivot. I mean, we've barely missed it twice now. And I won't flip bullish unless we get pretty much all the way up here. Up here could be bullish, but we'll see if it's stronger or weaker. But really up here is where I'm bullish. So for now, I'm still bearish. You can see there's kind of a head and shoulders forming. ES has kind of bearish consolidation going on at the moment. So I'm kind of just waiting to re-enter. And I find that ES flips a lot weaker than NQ. And I actually re-enter. Keep waiting for chop. Look how opposite it's going to the NASDAQ. Insane how weak ES was. This morning was a very difficult morning to trade, and it was really difficult because ES was bearish, NQ started flipping bullish. We were going opposite directions. I filled my puts at the end of this candle. Bare minimum price target. This pivot here, depending on how it looks, this is when I'll sell most. But if NQ starts, if NQ dumps back into demand, and like I said, even gets within 50 points of this pivot, I'm going to hold all the way. Well, as you can see, NQ goes up and ES goes down. They go completely opposite directions, making the analysis extremely difficult. And I was no longer really bearish for NQ to get down here because ES was dropping. NQ was making higher lows and higher highs, going opposite directions. So at this first PT, I sold pretty much everything. Right here, right when it swept. NQ is also bullishly consolidating. I didn't make much. The best sales I got was 20%, but I think I averaged about 10 to 15% on that trade because they didn't really go up much. I entered 2.45. The highest they got is like 3.1. Realistically, you sold probably around 2.9 at that pivot. And I still held a tiny bit. Well, unfortunately, I sold the last bit on this bounce, the second green candle, and ES was putting in a falling wedge. I also took a futures trade during that time that was triggered into. Pretty much same trade, right here. But the futures trade, I was actually going for the NQ pivot. And so I'm out of the options trade. Options red on the day. First red day in 17 trading days. And NQ keeps going up and ES doesn't. And unfortunately, ES ends up putting in a falling wedge, which, as you guys know, is bullish. And that's why I pretty much knew the trade was going to be over. But the sad thing is that I am flipping really bullish for NQ to break this trend line and clear all of these pivots. I told you guys, I'm extremely bullish for NQ to get to this pivot. I don't think it's just going to break the trend line and head down or swoop the supply and head down. I'm getting very bullish for this pivot, but unfortunately, I'm stuck in this freaking trade because ES wants to be extremely weak the entire time NQ goes up. So I couldn't end up stopping out of this trade until that happened and my bias was over. Now, I also left you guys off with this bias that I'm very bullish for NQ to break all-time highs. Again, similar thing. We have a lot of higher low or lower highs. When you have a pivot cluster like this, above price action made up of lower highs, it's price action is very bullish to chase that liquidity at some point. Didn't end up sticking around for the trade. Would have actually lost if I filled up there. It did end up breaking later on. I wasn't a part of it. But it was pretty upsetting that I could not take part in that NQ run at all because I was stuck in this BS trade. It was a very good trade, but today was impossibly difficult TA wise. The opposite. This day is the opposite of the kind of day that I need to actually be green. We had pretty much no liquidity sweeps all day. ES stayed compressing the entirety of the morning for 2 hours straight. NQ pretty much perfect bottom against a major pivot twice, major bounces. That happens 1 out of every 20 times. And not only that, the strength divergence was so severe. NQ was going up while ES was going down, locking me in my futures trade, not allowing me to switch and catch any of this upside. So today was a perfect day to not make any money with my strategy, but we maintained our psychology, and yeah, it's really all you can do, right? Hopefully tomorrow is the opposite of today, but the nice thing is this pivot's still intact. So I have no idea when we're going to come back down, but keep this pivot marked on your charts as 30-91 pivot on NQ. I'd say even if we're within 90 points of this pivot, despite the super heavy demand, we should break it. So I'm very bearish for that to break at some point. So at least I have that to look forward to. But yeah, very, very shitty day. Right, type in chat. Does anyone have any questions? That pretty much wraps up today's entire thing. Only one green trade, a few reds. A big green to red trade, which really sucked. And then futures just screwed me over with that strength divergence. But as far as our analysis, we were spot on, except this pivot. If this pivot would have swept, like, man, if this pivot would have swept here, not only would I have made a bunch of money on those puts, I just needed 1 point, literally just 1 point lower. Not only would I have made a bunch of money on those puts, I would have been all over futures longs for this uptrend. I mean, it would have been a massive day, which really sucks to think about. But, you know, we've been so lucky for the last 3 weeks in a row. Definitely due for a super unlucky day. So hopefully it's an unlucky day and not an unlucky week. But regardless, we'll keep our psychology. Just keep executing our edge. Right. It does not look like there's any questions in chat. So we have a study session tonight, but I'm going to be preparing for or to continue our futures strategy development lesson series tomorrow. We have 3 lessons over the next 3 days. Make sure you tune in. They'll all be 30 minutes after market open. We'll also have trade arenas every other day of the week. So stay tuned for that. One last thing, I'm going to be sending out announcements regarding the upcoming tournament this week. I'm going to send out a mass DM and announcements. $2,000 tournament. If you are not registered, register for it. It's completely free. You don't even need to be premium. Just get in a group of 3 people. Make sure you're in this server. And let me know your team name. And that's all you need to register. All right. If you guys don't need anything, I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully tomorrow is an infinitely better day than today, because today was the perfect day for me to do the opposite of make money. And yeah, you guys have a blessed rest of your day. Do you have a team already? I'm not competing, obviously. But there's a lot of people that don't have teams. I'll put out a lot of announcements for this week. All right, I will see you guys later. If you need anything, ping me in chat. And we do have a giveaway as well. I'll be drawing for that at some point. And yeah, hopefully tomorrow's way better. Today was freaking awful. All right, see you guys later.